Good morning, it's February 2nd. This is To My Liberal Friends, and this is John Haddo. A little over a year ago, Joe Biden was elected to be President of the United States. In the House, the Democrats had a slim majority, and in the Senate, it was a 50-50 tie, but Democrats had the tie-breaking vote with Vice President Kamala Harris. And so Democrats were euphoric, thinking this is our opportunity, this is our chance. We can reform America to what we want it to be. We can pass whatever we want. And so they started out with massive spending bills. In the Senate, trying to use it under budget reconciliation, and I will tell you that this process of reconciliation was never intended to be used for massive spending and taxing bills the way it's being used today. Bernie Sanders started out with a $6 trillion bill. Seeing that that wasn't going to fly, he negotiated down to 3.5 and ran into a speed bump again with Joe Manchin. There he couldn't pass it. And so they negotiated, brought it down to 1.75 trillion, but still using budget tricks to mask the true cost, which the Congressional Budget Office said was north of 3 trillion. The bill seemed to be dying on the vine. Over in the House, the progressives, led by the squad, once again, we're going to pass whatever we want. We're going to pass this bill. Now, they had a 5-vote majority, and in the House, you can pass things with a simple majority. And so they were ramping up to pass legislation, sending it over to the Senate, only to watch it languish on the calendar. Once the Build Back Better bill didn't look like it was going to make it through because Manchin objected to the budget chicanery, they tried to change the filibuster rule. Senator Manchin, Senator Sinema from Arizona said no. We understand that if you do that, there's no bipartisanship left in the Senate. It was ironic that Senator Cotton read a speech strongly defending the filibuster and at the end said, and I quote, "These are not my words. These are the words of the senior senator from New York." And he put up a picture of Chuck Schumer. And so Democrats now have to reevaluate a year later just where we are and where we think we're going as we head into midterm elections. Historically, the party in the White House loses seats in the Congress. That means more than likely Democrats will lose their majority in the House, and there is a reasonable chance they will lose that 50-50 semi-majority in the Senate. And the longer they wait to pass stuff, the more difficult it becomes to pass it. And so Biden's got to decide, is it time for me to finally pivot and start working with the bipartisan agreements? Let's be honest. If you look at poll after poll, the progressives are a minority even within the Democratic Party, just as the far right is a minority in the Republican Party. But in the middle there is a lot of room to negotiate and get things done. Senator Torres from New York, when Biden was first elected, said, "We have our FDR moment." A year later, and I'm quoting, "We are in something resembling an FDR moment," because he doesn't have the votes to pass things. And that's the problem. We hear Biden claiming credit for the bipartisan infrastructure bill as something he accomplished, but he doesn't seem to focus. It was a bipartisan agreement. He brought Republicans in the Senate over to vote for it, and that's how he got it done. If he would now pivot and say, look, I want to work with Mitch McConnell. I want to work with Kevin McCarthy, as well as Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. I want to find what we can find common ground on and move legislation that benefits all of the American people, not just the far left. That's a difficult situation that Biden finds himself in. But slowly but surely, the Democrats are figuring out that maybe they have to start negotiating. They can start to try to coalesce around some approach that will achieve some of their original goals, but not all of it. But it takes work. Now, the Democrats were dealt a blow last night when Senator Lujan from New Mexico suffered a stroke. And I wish him well and a speedy recovery, but indicates are he will recover, but it's going to be a while before he's back in the Senate. That leaves it at 50-49 with Republicans, so it's very difficult for them to pass anything. And history tells us that if you get into June, even July, it's very difficult to pass any major tax or spending bill because you're too close to the election and it can be pointed out to the electorate, this is what you've been doing. So some progressive activists, they decided that what Manchin did was a bait and switch, and they're not going to work for bipartisanship. They want to go full out. Let's go after it. That won't work, and I think Biden, if he has any honest advisors, and I believe Steve Ricchetti, who's in the White House, is somebody who understands this, are going to start trying to move him a little more to the middle. Let's quit selling out to the progressives, and let's try to find a way to compromise and work on some things. And there are issues that they can work on. There are things they can do. There are some climate control issues that both Republicans and Democrats will support, and we can get them done. Just saying, I'm not going to vote it on something because I don't get everything I want, it's never worked. They have to look. In that infrastructure bill, it was passed the Senate 68-32. The Innovation and Competition Act, more commonly known as the infrastructure bill, got bipartisan support. And that's what they need. The House is looking at other bills to bring up, and they have till probably spring to get them done. But the clock is ticking, time's running out, and if Democrats don't figure out that the progressives are a little bit misguided and don't have the votes to pass some of these heavily progressive pieces of legislation, they're in for not just losing the House, but in for a bloodbath. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening.